Am I seeing a camera? Okay, we are live. This is the Senate Committee on Institutions and IT, and it is March 20th. And sorry, I misspoke on the floor. I said we were going to meet at 1:30, which we are, but it was scheduled for 1 o'clock. So sorry for the folks who arrived early.
They got to hear a tremendous joke.
Only one.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, at least one tremendous joke was shared. So what we're looking at today and hearing from is the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets, and specifically the Big E and the Agricultural and Environmental Laboratory. So we have lots of knowledgeable witnesses here and online, and the way we have it scheduled is Nicole Dubuque would start. Is that how you would like to do it?
Sure.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. And we can introduce ourselves. I'm Wendy Harrison. I'm the chair and I'm from the Northern District.
Senator Russ Ingalls. I think most everybody knows who I am. I know all of you, so thank you.
Senator Joe Major, Windsor.
Rob Plunkett, Bennington District. San Douglas, Orleans District.
Great, thank you. Okay, Nicole, take it away.
Hi. Further. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no worries. So my name is Nicole Dubuque, and I am the Chief Operating Officer for the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. And I understand that we are here today to talk a little bit about a couple pieces of the Capitol bill, including the Vail Heat Plant and the Big E building in Springfield, Massachusetts. I'm not sure if we're starting with Vail or we're starting with the Big E, but I can at least introduce who is there with you today. So I see in the corner over there, you have Amy Mercer, who is our CFO, Cheryl Achilles, who is our lab director. I can introduce you to Joe. I see Asia from BGS, and Abby Willard, who's the director of our Agricultural Development Division. So she will talk to you a little bit about the Big E. And then I'm sorry if there's anybody behind Senator Major that I'm not seeing, but that's the majority of our team that's there today. Happy to answer any questions you have about either of those places, whether it be our Vermont building in Springfield or it's the lab. A lot of expertise in the room. And then as far as the budget and the actual construction of the projects, I think BGS is going to take that. So which project did you want to start on?
Let's start with the Big E.
Okay. Abby, do you want to start on that? Cool.
And you can come to the table.
I will, yeah, just
Actually,
share all my things here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, my stuff.
Thank you. All right, thanks for having us. For the record, Abby Willard, I'm the Director of the Ag Development Division at the Agency of Agriculture. And management of the Vermont building at the Big E is one of the programs and projects that our team administers. So I think you can see the slide deck there, and I have it here on the laptop, so I'm just going to kind of push through some history slides for folks that have maybe not had the opportunity to visit the Big E.
Okay,
and
who's been to
see
the Big E?
building.
Who's been to the Big E? No. Okay, next year we'll have
All
more.
right, field trip.
Yes, and then we can go to Basketball Hall of Fame and we'll be.
That's right. It's a casino.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of things.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, great. So we thought we could share a little bit about the history of the Vermont building and the Big E, talk a little bit about the relationship that we have with Vermont vendors, and then the important partnership that we manage with BGS to make sure that the building is cared for and maintained kind of year round, as well as during the 17 days of the Big E show. Okay, so this is to advance it kind of old school here. Great. So there's a long history to the Eastern States Exposition, which we refer to as the Big E. It's been around for over 100 years, and it has become one of the largest agricultural state fairs in the country. And a very unique feature of this ag fair is having this Avenue of the States. And so in 1929, Vermont building was built on the Avenue of the States. And so we're near approaching our 100-year anniversary of the Vermont building. And you'll see both that in some of its age when we look at some of the photos, but also in kind of like the classic appeal of the building. So a long and rich history at the Big E. We really think of it as a public market. So it's an opportunity for Vermont products and Vermont culture and Vermont vendors to showcase their products to visitors at the Big E, as well as an opportunity to promote Vermont and all that we represent. Okay, so for those that haven't been to the Big E, it's 17 days of kind of mayhem fair from, early in the day to late at night. In 2025, the fair will be September 12th to September 28th. So it's usually mid-September, sometimes runs into early October. And it is well worth the visit. And we'll show a map in a little bit, but there's 1.6 million people per year that typically attend the Big E, or Eastern States Exposition. We don't have door counters coming into the Vermont building, but we estimate that about 90% of the Big E fairgoers also walk through the Avenue of the States and enter the Vermont building. So 1.4 visitors per year over a 17-day period. So you can imagine kind of the activity that goes through this building and the trade opportunity and market opportunity that exists for the vendors that are there. In comparison, those 1.4 million visitors are 3 times as many people that visit our most visited Vermont Information Center in Guilford through the whole year. So 1.4 visitors in 17 days. Guilford's Visitor Center receives less than a third of those throughout the entire year. So it's just such an opportunity to showcase and celebrate Vermont and Vermont products. And we couldn't do it without our partnership with Department of Tourism, Department of Labor, and Building and General Services. So the Agency of Agriculture has the responsibility for staffing the Vermont building during the event, but it's clearly a collaborative state effort for the event to happen and for the building to be maintained. This slide sort of speaks to the location of the Big E in West Springfield, Massachusetts, and its proximity to kind of major metropolitan markets of the Northeast. You can see kind of the driving distances there on the left. There was also yearly visitation data that's gathered where you can see that it's not actually showcasing Vermont products to Vermonters. So 1% of typical visitors are from Vermont, but 89% of visitors come from Connecticut and Massachusetts. And so again, it's a real opportunity at the beginning of fall foliage season to showcase Vermont businesses, Vermont products, and start to kind of demonstrate that desire to come north as a tourism opportunity for people across the Eastern Seaboard. And we're excited to kind of contribute to that opportunity of getting people to be excited about heading up to Vermont for foliage season. And you can see what the travel distances are, that it's only an hour and a half from Boston, 2.5 hours from New York City. All right, so that's the Vermont building there in the center. That crowd of people is walking in front of the Avenue of the States. That's probably on Vermont Day, which is the busiest day that we have in the building. And then you can see in the map below on the far right-hand side is where the Avenue of States is. So each New England state has their own building. And it is a part of the Big E, but you can see the Coliseum and the vendors that happen outside of the Big E fair sort of happening a little bit to the left. There's concerts and food and music and all sorts of agricultural events that happen throughout the rest of the Big E. I was trying to think what I wanted to share on this slide. other than just the proximity of the.
So I have just a little question. So it says the building and the land is owned by the state of Vermont, so it's
That's
like
right.
a house lot.
Yeah, so we own the building and the land. We have a deed for the building, but we don't pay property taxes in Massachusetts.
So it's not this.
I guess you could think that, yeah, like a-
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Let's call it the embassy.
That's right. Maybe we could retitle it for its next 100 years. It could be The Vermont Embassy. in
And then we could
Springfield,
use it year round.
Massachusetts. Yeah, the Ag Embassy, we could even. refer to as. I like that.
I would think that
I
Yeah,
like it.
good, thank you. Okay, this is a PowerPoint, so this doesn't show up as an active video, but this is actually a live video. If we could show you, this is kind of what the high density traffic looks like as it flows through a portion of the Vermont building on a super busy day. So there's vendors along both sides, and then there's a second row of the same, of another round of vendors on the other side. People come in one door, and I'll show kind of a layout of that. They go to the back of the room, or back of the building, they can go outside. We have vendors and food trucks on the outside. They can come back in the other door and go out the other side. So this is what adds to the intensity of being a vendor at the Big E in the Vermont building, is that some days it is a steady and constant flow of people walking through the building from 10 in the morning or even earlier than that to 9 at night, where they're looking for food and products and gifts and an authentic Vermont experience both. So you'll see that workers don't really have a lot of private space, and so they have to leave the building. We do have an upstairs space that we'll look at in a minute, to be able to take a little bit of refuge, use the restrooms, maybe have some food. But most of the time, if you're on shift, you are visible and engaged in sales or backloading inventory, or maybe even grabbing extra product from Vermont. So that happens for vendors too, that they run out of product more than they anticipated they would sell and have to return to home base and bring more product down. So this slide shows the vendors that we had in the building in 2024. Many of them were returning vendors, a few were new vendors. That's very typical for the Vermont building, that we every year have a rotation of new vendors that come in that are either selling agricultural products or other Vermont-based products as Vermont businesses. We do a competitive application every year to solicit vendors. We're actually in that process of reviewing applications right now. I think the team is reviewing applications and they're due with their reviews tomorrow to identify what new vendors that maybe had an old vendor that's no longer attending, or their 3-year contract has come up and they've chosen not to return, who will take their place. There are current limitations in the building as to the space that we can accommodate the number of vendors. There is a goal as part of kind of like this infrastructure investment kind of stage that we're in to increase the number of vendor spaces. I think we have 18 or 19 currently, and our hope is to bring that to over 25 vendor spaces to be able to kind of continue the trend of increasing revenue and sales within the building.
So I'm sorry,
Please.
everything is contained in the building.
Not quite. So this is a kind of a floor plan of the building, and you can see that photo that we showed of everyone kind of walking through, that was right in front of stations 2, 4, and 6. So in front of our cheese vendors and Village Peddler. So that's where folks come in, that upper right-hand side of the building, walk through all the way down by the Vermont Sugar Makers Association and Ben and Jerry's. They can exit the building there. And then there's a back patio, which I'll show a photo of in a minute, that has a variety of food trucks. There's an outdoor shed that also has vendors. There's someone that does bear carvings. And we have intentionally cultivated a real strength to that outdoor space in the last couple of years that didn't exist previously. And it's actually been represented in the increase in sales. And then, so to your question, there's a number of stations and vendor booths within the building, and there's a few outside of the building on our property grounds as well.
And I'm sorry, you said that right now they're 18.
I think 18.
You'd like to expand it to 25 or
29, I think, is the ultimate goal. And I think Joe has that slide in his slide deck that we can kind of show the comparison of this layout to what we imagined for an expanded layout.
Okay.
And it's really more about utilization of space more efficiently. Part of, and when we talk about revenue sales that have grown in the last couple of years, is for a variety of reasons, but part of it has been being very creative in the building and actually utilizing storage and closets and turning them into vendor space so that we can increase the number of vendors that can be in a building at one time.
And there's no mezzanine.
There's a partial mezzanine that's not actually safe at this point. I'll show a photo of some of the skylight leak that has kind of leaked into that area. For what has been for storage. And then the other part of the mezzanine is where our bathrooms are. So currently bathrooms are only on the second floor, which has created a challenge for some of our elderly vendors that actually have to go into another state building to use the facilities. And we have a small office and a small kitchen area that are available to vendors only on the second floor.
Something just occurred to me with Sam pointing something out. Who takes care of the building? Is it
Well, that would be
building?
EGS, yeah.
It is built. Wow. Okay. So you deploy people there for, regular maintenance. I would.
That's out of our southeast district.
Okay.
And they're amazing. They are, so this event is so intense over the 17 days and the pack in days and the pack out days at that kind of bookend the event. And there's a toilet leak or there's a brownout and the electric breakers have been tripped. And our staff that are there from the Agency of Agriculture are in constant contact with the folks in the Southeast office, and they're there within hours. And that's been a relationship that we've cultivated for years to make sure that it's an odd construction of being able to operate a Vermont building that's outside of our state, and it's very inconvenient at times, but they have been incredibly responsive whenever we've needed them.
You see something that. You're perceptive. I guess this is for you, Joe. I don't know. Would it be more cost efficient or better if we contracted that out, or is it better to have your team?
We do both.
Okay, all right.
So there are times that, yes, for an electrician or something like that, sometimes we have them under contract.
Yep.
And they're on call also during the session of the fair.
I've done this a few times, and I think that this is probably the best thing. I'm gonna shut up because you're probably gonna answer every question that I have. So I apologize.
Yeah, no.
If you speak with Fork and Tongue, nor can all of us.
No, I actually appreciate the questions to know what's important to you and kind of where you're intrigued by the projects in the building. So yeah, happy to answer questions. This slide sort of speaks to the goals that we have with an Agency of Agriculture around the Vermont building at the Big E, and the goals that we have set, which is we want to have Vermont businesses have a successful experience when they're there. We want to, as best we can, represent the integrity and the diversity of products that Vermont and Vermont businesses provide and produce. We want the fairgoer to have an enjoyable experience. We want them to come into our building and be able to, easily flow through the building, have great commerce engagements with the vendors, and want to come back. So one thing that we know about the Big E is it's very habitual. People come every year and they want to get the same food and the same gift and the same thing in the same place. And so they get very accustomed to kind of going to get their lemonade there and their apple pie here and their whoopie pie in the main building and, maple cotton candy in the Vermont building. We have some budget goals that we want to set we have set and want to meet, which has to do with kind of increasing revenue from commission sales, which is how we manage and operate the building. And by increasing the number of vendors that are in the building space as well. And then we want to see a nice diversity of products. So we always try to make sure that we don't have 6 ice cream producers and 5 maple producers, but we want to kind of capture the diversity and variety so that each vendor has a good sales while they're there, but also it showcases the variety that's produced in our state.
You might think this is a joke question, but it is a sincere
Yeah,
question. Do the maple producers offer sugar on the snow?
They have not. They do maple cotton candy and maple syrup.
You get shaved ice makers that would achieve a similar effect.
That's a good idea. Yeah. We can certainly suggest it. So we have like a value added. Historically, we've had a value added maple producer and the Vermont Maple Sugar Makers Association that is there and does incredibly well over 17 days, highlighting kind of the cooperative nature of Vermont maple products that are sold in Vermont and produced in Vermont.
Have we raised the vendor admission fee?
We have. So in 2025, it will be 15% for the first time for all vendors. Previously, it was 13.5%, and prior to that, it was 12%. And so again, we can talk about that, but it is a challenge, a big experience for the vendors to also be at the Big E. They have to pay for accommodations, so they have to stay in hotels. Some people like to camp in their cars and bring campers and try to save on their kind of housing costs. They have to pay labor to be able to work the 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. shifts, as well as kind of the setup and take down and clean up. They often have to have running staff that run between Vermont and West Springfield, Massachusetts with product. And they're long days, and it's a tiring, kind of stint to try to do 17 days. Most businesses actually have shifts because they just can't be there for 17 days and have that kind of an intensive experience. So we're trying to kind of find the perfect balance of encouraging all stage of development and size of businesses to be able to be there, while also generating enough of an operating budget that, which is somewhere around $250,000 to $300,000 a year, to be able to manage and operate the building.
Do you have partial contracts so that in one
Yes.
space, a different business could be there
Yes.
every time?
So there's a variety of different ways that our team, and I'm not the expert on this, but that we have managed that, which is you can be there for all 17 days. You could be there for 7 days and share a booth. So one business will be in a booth for 7 days and then another, and then they pack out and another business comes in. We've done that as a way for first-time businesses to sort of get a sense and a feel of what it's like and the intensity and the amount of sales and the product kind of preferences of the fair goer. Some of those businesses that are there for a few number of days, I've often come back for the full 17 days. And then we have had, and I think we still do, varying lengths of contracts. So it could be a 1-year contract with the ultimate goal of it being 3-year contracts to sort of have vendors know and for us to know that the building's going to be full, and the configuration of business kind of variability that we'll see throughout the show for multiple years in a row. So a variety of different ways that we're supporting different scale and size of businesses. Great. Yeah, great question. So here's that outdoor space that we were talking about. So if you walk out of the back of the building, past Sugar Makers and Ben & Jerry's, that are currently the vendors there, this is the outdoor space. And so there's a couple of food trucks, there's music that's playing, there's this shed over on the right-hand side where you can see the kind of umbrellas from. And it didn't look like this a couple of years ago. It was always kind of a quiet, kind of underutilized space. And that was always a question of the BGS and Agency of Ag team of like, how do we make this a vibrant extension of the building so that we could have, additional vendors, more sales, more kind of just like energy and good vibes. And I think that finally we've achieved that by being able to have food trucks and the right vendors in these outside shed stalls. And it's really exciting to kind of be able to show this photo of a lot of people enjoying the space.
Yeah, and it is a great space. And it's,
Yeah.
I found it especially nice because when you're inside and it's crowded, you're not headed towards a blank wall where you're gonna have to turn around. You're headed towards a place
The outside,
where you can,
yeah.
yes. So
Yeah.
it's terrific. And there's still stuff to do outside.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, the reputation of being a vendor at the Big E, we've had some quotes from some of our businesses and some of even our applicants that maybe hadn't ended up being businesses, is that to be a Big E vendor is something to be coveted. It's that people know that you're going to go to the Big E, there are going to be people there that are spending money, and you're likely to have really good sales. And so that's all part of that kind of vendor experience that we're proud of. Okay, so then this shows Vermont building sales by year over the past 6 years. So 2019 was a great sales year and had been our previous highest sales year. 2020, the fair didn't happen due to the pandemic. 2021, the decision was made to reopen the fair and have people come back, but we had fewer vendors that were willing and comfortable to make the commitment. There were also fewer attendees, so sales were lower. 2022 attendance started to creep back up. We brought in more vendors, and that's when we started to make some of the space improvements. So better utilization indoors and kind of maximizing the outdoor space. 23 was when we added the food trucks. And that's when we were finally back to our 2019 $2 million in annual sales. And then we topped that in 2024. So 2024 last year was our highest ever sales year of just over 2.2 million in vendor sales.
What would you attribute that to?
We have more vendors, so we've been able to kind of bring in more businesses, which then brings in more fairgoers and visitors, which results in higher sales. And I think we've really been focusing in the last few years on the major maintenance improvements that are needed in the building, both in the aesthetics, but also in how the building looks, but also in how it flows and operates. And that's really been part of this kind of like multi-year plan that BGS and the Agency of Ag have been focused on.
What sort of marketing strategies have you employed for the Vermont building, like social media?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not the best person to answer that. The Big E gets a lot of marketing of its own, so I feel like we kind of benefit from all of their marketing. We do have great communications team within the Agency of Agriculture that when they've come down, they do nice live reels and, you know, photos of product that ends up on the agency's social media. So both Facebook and X or whatever it's now called. I'll make sure.
You've got to get a 20
Yeah.
thumb and a TikTok and
So I feel like we use our social media during the event of the year. And I'm sure that there's something more that I'm missing that tourism and marketing has done over the years to help showcase. They have a huge booth at the opening of the front of the building that has lots of brochures and materials about kind of just like highlighting Vermont experience, vacation Vermont, all the great things that happen in our state. But you have to have already come to kind of benefit from that. So I'm guessing that the Big E is highlighted in the tourism and marketing kind of materials as well.
seems like you're benefiting.
Yeah,
And this
Yeah.
is gross, right?
correct.
Do you know what our net is?
Who's net? You mean like the vendors?
With the state's net.
Well, so our only net is, well, we receive the commission.
Right.
And so that is somewhere around, it's changed per year based upon sales and what our
Sure.
commission rate is, but it's somewhere between $225,000 and $250,000 a year. And Amy can correct me if that feels off in any way, but and that ends up being kind of like our operational budget for the year for the program in the building.
Gotcha.
I will say, like, something that we've talked about with great seriousness is that, like, we can imagine a moment where the commission rates pay for the building's needs. Meaning the major maintenance needs as well as the operation and maintenance of the building on an annual basis. We're not there now because of all the deferred maintenance that has kind of like stacked up over a long period of time and some of these important kind of like building renovation and redesign ideas that have felt important to the building and have been part of the goal to achieve by 2029 when, you know, we're planning a 100-year celebration of Vermont's building. But eventually that's the goal, is that we'll have enough sales, enough vendors, enough commission to be able to cover the cost of the building on an annual basis. Yeah,
The total cost of the,
total cost.
that's great.
Enjoy your salary.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does pay for portion of our building management team salary at the Agency of Agriculture. So I think we have 4 staff that it's a portion of their time. It's not any one individual's full-time salary, but that team of building managers all take a portion of their salary from the Big E. Okay, I'm gonna try to move through these. So this is just showing that in 2023, we finally diverged from having our total sales be dependent upon Biggie attendance. And that's a good sign, because that means that even if the weather is poor, which sometimes happens and attendance is low at the Biggie, we are feeling confident that we will continue to have growing sales as a result of kind of the reputation of the Vermont building. It's clearly been identified by so many, even though it's not from Vermont, that the Vermont building is the best building on the avenue of the states. It has a great feeling. We have great vendors. We've been really true to the fact that we want them to be ag and Vermont product based businesses. And as a result, our sales continue to grow.
That is a great slide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good news. And
Yeah.
that wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
You can see prior to 2023, it was a very kind of direct relationship. Okay, so now to the problem slides. And so this is where you start talking about the building's current condition kind of creating some challenges for us as the state of Vermont. I'd already mentioned, the older vendor that needs to walk to the nearby building to use the restroom, because our only restroom is on the second floor. We have our toilets are up on the second floor mezzanine as well, and they've repeatedly leaked onto a vendor's booth. We did fix that in 2024, so we're feeling really good about that. But
The number 3.
the ADA accessibility, yeah.
I guess, in a bit of a quandary. The building's legal?
Well, can I speak to that? It's
Please,
not,
please.
the public isn't going upstairs. So
That's right.
some of the ADA requirements were places where the public goes. That's a higher level of,
Okay.
compliance.
I got it.
And than where, employees,
So you're saying there's public restrooms on the.
somewhere else.
On the ground of the Biggie, but not in the Vermont building.
Okay.
And so I think there are questions and concerns about the fact that the eating area that we have within the building and the restroom facilities in our building are on the second floor, and we don't have an elevator in the building. So they're like 2.5, 2 half flight stairs and then 3 steps into the bathroom on the mezzanine floor.
Yeah, and just to be clear, it is inadequate, but it's not necessarily illegal, is what I want to say. And then Senator, you have.
You might answer my question, so I'll just hold on.
Okay. So, on this slide, it sort of highlights the electrical limitations of the building. So we've had brownouts. We limit vendor options of what equipment and product that they can produce based upon its usage of electrical draw, since we have strained the system at its current capacity. We've talked a little bit about the leaks and the ADA accessibility. I'll show some photos here next that just sort of show the wear and tear on the building, sort of some of the flaking paint and rotting trim and some of the brickwork that's been priority of the last few years. So there's like a brick walkway that has been maybe had some improvements done just from a safety for the public and for the average fairgoer. But I would still say that the building is still in like this somewhat state of disrepair that we're kind of committed to improving over the next few years. And then part of the discordant aesthetics is that in the side, and again, BGS and Joe's slides will show what our new kind of configuration on the inside is intended to be, which is again, maximizing space, but also removing pinch points. So there's a few places like if you're waiting in queue to get a beer, that kind of creates a little backflow for the vendors that are across from them. And we fear that like fairgoers just kind of run through them because they are just trying to get out of the way of the long backed up line. So really trying to address the width of the walkways and the configuration of the booths so that everybody has a good experience, both as the vendor having good sales and as a fairgoer as you're walking through the building. Did I answer your question yet?
I'm sorry, I was reading that.
Oh, no, that's fine. Okay, so this is the image of the facilities on the second floor. You can see kind of the 2 half floor stairs up and then the few steps. There's a similar factor on the other end of the mezzanine here. The staff's office is just off to the right and the kitchen is down the hall currently. This is just, again, kind of the windows. are kind of a priority for kind of next phase improvements to the building. This is a second floor old storage area that has had a skylight that has leaked, and there had been product that was stored there that got ruined, and so we're actually not storing anything there, and I think it's even been deemed not a place to keep things. This is showing some of the exterior trim work on the building, and a little bit closer up that's kind of in need of repair. So I think it was in 23, this body appropriated $330,000 for us to collectively do an engineering and design assessment for renovation of the building. And the goal was to sort of develop a plan to be implemented over the coming years so that in 2029, we could have this sort of renovated and modernized and redesigned building for celebration at its 100-year anniversary. And so these are kind of the goals that we have set around the building. And I think what BGS can speak to what they've been focused on and what kind of remains the priorities for the coming fiscal years. But again, we're really just looking to make sure we are bringing the building up to code so that we don't have as many inefficiencies and kind of like safety and maintenance concerns. Improving the appearance and experience in the building. So increasing the number of booths as well as improving the facilities in the building. So kitchen, bathrooms, etc., storage. And then systematically working on both the mechanical and electrical needs of the building so that we can reduce sort of like the ongoing extensive maintenance that has been troublesome and expensive. All right, so
Here we go.
now this is the part you've all been waiting for. Hopefully that was helpful history kind of the building and
We could
how it works.
all
Okay. I'm glad I was useful for you.
You were doing so
Every
well.
day.
Yeah, you were doing so positive. And then you got to that.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you want to just drive
Oh,
over
yeah,
here?
yes, please.
Okay. So I'll use-
Thank you. That nice little intro. All right, for the record, I'm Joe Rager, the Director for Design and Construction for Buildings and General Services. As we have covered, we're in the midst of design and we're going to be starting construction this year. There have been many years of neglect of the building, and part of that problem is the distance away from Vermont itself, the March Southeast District. And it's just now has really caught up to us. We have invested some of our major maintenance funds over the year to do some of the smaller things, but this really is the larger renovations that are taking place, and we're looking to do it in basically 3 phases. The first 2 are the major phases. You have provided funding of 1.530 million for us in 24, and another around 1.04 in FY25, and we're asking for an additional 1.5 million each year in this budget. And what we're looking to do then, and under these phases, is the major exterior work for the building of this renovation. So we're looking for, as I showed some of the pictures, you saw the rock that was in the eaves, and some of the soffits in our brickwork and the likes of that. That's going to be all taken care of. Whatever the funding level looking for. The front of the building, although it looks somewhat nice, actually in this photo here, it's, if you're actually down there on the site, it is not, it does need quite a bit of work. You can actually see the layers of paint over the years that we put on this. And so our contractor will be going through and cleaning up a lot of that, along with getting rid of all the rot. Some of the roof work has to be redone. Then we both have on the pitch portion of the roof, it's slate for the back half. Is a flat membrane roof. And we'll be going through and tapping all that. And so what we have right now is we're completing our design. And we're using a construction manager. So our construction manager is already on board. We have them under contract and we're out getting subcontractor bids right now. So with that, we're allowing us to get some of the jump on things with not 100% completed drawings. but enough for a contractor to bid on, so we get in this. We have a limited window. One is basically the summer and before the fair starts. And the stopping is critical here because the fair starts and we have to be out of there. So that is one of the critical things of scheduling.
As I look at many of the things that you plan on, attacking, there may be some increased costs because of, tariffs and things of that nature. Do we have contingencies built in case that? If
When the structure manager project went out to bid, no. But as we're bidding out for subcontracting, yes. But because the budget was put together before all that came into play, don't know what we'll be up against. With the tariffs going up and down, not sure. There's not a lot of steel that's going into this. It's wood. And yes, a lot of our wood comes out of Canada, but for Massachusetts, I'm not sure where the contract will be obtaining the wood from. It could be more sometimes, local kind of that area. So I'm not sure how the tariffs will impact us.
I guess my question is it a possibility that you'll be coming back and asking for?
There's always a possibility. So,
Didn't even look at it.
what we're, because it's the phase project, and what we're looking at doing is hopefully that our best estimate that we put forth holds. One of the issues that you do run into when we have, you're like in a building like this, is what you're starting, getting up there and removing some of the rotted wood. It goes further than anticipated originally. Our design team has been out there and looked at things like that. But once you open up a roof or something like that, you do find some unknowns. Not looking for a lot of unknowns along those lines. I'll know more when the bids come in as to how close we were to our estimate. And what we would do at that point is sort of evaluate what needs to be done, what can be done by the time the fair opens, and maybe what gets pushed off into phase 2 and phase 3.
Thanks.
Also included in this phase 1 work is addressing the work on the cupola that had been done, and whether or not we have to rebuild the dome. We're still evaluating that. So that is the exterior portion of what we're looking at doing. It's wood and brick.
Yes, yeah. There you go.
Phase 2 is more of the mechanical electrical system. Right now, the building is not heated. So there's no heat. So in colder days, it's not always typical down there. It can be a little chilly in there. And we have investigated whether or not we have to provide some heat. Like the fire alarm system itself does require heat, but there's no electric heater on the inside of that to keep that going and functioning. But at this point in time, we're not looking to heat the entire building. We did have a brief assessment done on that evaluated whether or not that would help with the deterioration or prevent the continued deterioration of the building. At this point in time, we're not looking to heat the entire building. It's still a cold building.
Interesting.
A lot of as Abby also mentioned, we have an electrical issue. It starts at the transformer service coming in, and that transfer is also shared by other states. So we're looking to address it from that point coming forward so that when these vendors do show up and we're able to plug in, that nothing rounds out on them when we throws a break in, something like that. So as Abby said, we do try and respond as soon as possible. Even, a half hour down for a vendor is a loss. So that's why we're also looking at this. Some of the issues over the 30 or 40 years, probably from this last renovation or longer, the fact that some of the electrical appliances have increased and likes to that. And all we have done is try to accommodate in a inexpensive fashion, say, well, there's space in that breaker, we can use it to put another outlet in. But when you do that, and everybody wants to plug into that same circuit, that becomes a problem. So the phase 2 of this electrical renovation will take care of that.
Are you looking at any solar on the roof?
We are not. One of the problems with solar is you need a, it's the battery system and the likes of that. So that's nothing that we investigate, because during the off season, we have no place for that.
Oh, yeah, and stuff for the summer, and it could be a display itself, but.
Fun vendor.
Yeah, no.
Norwich, so
I also will mention is that the plumbing system. So we have made some code improvements down there. Again, some of the issues that we're up against over time when we used to do some of the maintenance ourselves is we're dealing with the state of Massachusetts code and not the state of Vermont. And so that has, in good faith, some of our people were down there, not aware of it at the time. There was, I want to say 10, 15 years ago, this was looked at as sovereign property and it was ours and we lived by our code. Most recently though, the fire marshal for the town has come in and evaluated us and said, that's fine, you can have your stolen property as long as your fire department responds. So because
That's
when a
great.
local fire department respond, they decide, well, okay, we'll have to comply with their.
So it's not an embassy.
I think how reasonable that argument is.
It lasted for a while. So we are going through and along with the renovations to the booths and likes of that, we are upgrading the plumbing to comply with the code. And our phase 3 rehabilitation is your prioritizing our major maintenance and functionality of the place, keeping our building systems up. You can see here the floor, it's able to wear and tear on it, and we're looking to eventually take care and replace that whole floor. It's an epoxy floor, so it's we have had to saw cut and remove sections to tackle some of our plumbing issues. It's just that, if you are in there on a day when you're not bumper to bumper and shoulder to shoulder with everybody, you can look down at the floor and you do see that is, needs to be addressed. Moving on to really it was mentioned about the booths, which we have done here on the right hand side of this screenshot. The upper portion is the existing booth layout. And on the lower section is the new booth layout. And we can see here we're looking at bringing down restrooms down to the first floor. So we can incorporate those into the existing little corner rooms that are there or build those. That way it is completely compliant for ADA for the staff and the vendors that are there.
and this is where this, I'm sorry.
No, I think we're having the same question. So that's for the vendors and the staff, not the public.
That is correct.
So you're gonna hide them because it's,
Not
the public
right,
sees
they're
the
gonna go
bathrooms,
walking
they're
right
gonna wanna
by,
go in the
yes,
bathrooms.
I don't know if they're going to be listed as a restroom.
Okay.
Because the vendors would know that
Yeah,
if they're in, the doors are probably going to be locked. Otherwise, I think what would happen is you would end up with a line of visitors there. To
totally.
go in.
Yeah, a long,
Yes.
long sweaty line.
That's not the line. I'm looking for.
Vermont soap. So as you can see, the vendor groups are becoming small, a little more uniform, and that's way to a lot of times, in earlier years, the vendors came in, set up their own booths and the space that they needed or wanted or paid for. However, when they leave, it's like, okay, what do you do with that space? So now it's for creating a booth that is easily transferable to an individual. So some of them are going to have hoods for cooking and water and stuff like that, and some would not, so they can easily be rotating that around.
And so I assume somebody could get like 3 pods or booths together and
Have a bigger
maybe,
area for.
yeah.
Yeah. And encouragement. Right.
I think that's possible. I think the new configuration will better utilize the space. And I think if we had a vendor that needed more than one booth and it worked to have them, as conjoined spots, I think we're open to that.
And this is a good site plan of everything that is out there that shows we have our property line, the dash dot line around the whole thing. And then from the front of the entrance, this location, we have sitting over here, our walk-in cooler, and then you can get out back. So your flow of traffic runs through and you can either do the loop or you go outside, see different things and go fresh air, then go back in and circle back on through. We also have, 8 years ago, I think we created this little pathway that walks around on the other side of the building. And I don't know if there's displays or anything out there
No.
on that walking, it's just a path.
I think there was a tent where at the front where people were, there was a band, but I think that must not be on our property. I think that's the other, it would be to the right of this.
There was here's the wooden shed, there can't be,
Yeah.
awning, and then the side it was.
Well, that's the back.
Yeah,
of-
that's the back.
Yeah, the
Front,
front.
on Vermont Day, they're allowed to use the lawn.
Yeah, so that must
And
not
on
be
Harvest
our
New
lawn.
England Day, so yeah, there's 2 days out of the 17-day fair where we bring and have tents set up on the front lawn.
Yeah,
And that's another way to kind of like highlight and celebrate Vermont Day or this Harvest New England Day. And it's a way that we test vendors if they want to come down and try it for a day and see what it's like, and then maybe come in and be a short-term vendor in the building, and then maybe eventually be there for the full 17 days.
and that's not on our property.
And it's,
So that doesn't show our whole property then, I guess.
You know,
That's
it's
fine.
not, it's not
It's
go
not
out
a
the
big
street.
deal. Yeah, okay.
good point, yeah, it doesn't
Okay.
go all the way out to the street.
When's Vermont Day during the 17 days? Is it?
It's the second Saturday.
And we're probably happy that it's a Saturday, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's-
Yeah, great. So
Just
really,
go really early or really late.
So just so we're clear, I pushed, Senator Plunkett to ask that question because I felt my Vermont car would be.
But and I did it completely smoothly.
Yes.
Even learning about it smoothly.
We're on this side of the people.
Even they know I-
We're not quite so smooth on this side yet. They got it figured out over there.
And those are slides, if questions.
Yeah, we kind of did questions along the way. Thank you
Yeah,
for your,
absolutely.
your patience.
Okay.
Do we have any other? It's a great facility and terrific, and I know challenging to maintain, but thank you for your work. If the codes in Massachusetts ever, if you come upon something that you think, oh, that would be good for Vermont, I'm sure you know who to talk to.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
I apologize, it's going back.
Score.
Cat,
Thank
thank you.
You're welcome.
thank you.
I saw you sitting there, I said, oh, shoot.
We're here for the, Ross, were you first or
No, you first.
on first?
Yes, I don't know. Okay, so now we're going to the lab. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You
Um,
got something else?
no, I don't think so. So that's good for the Big E. Everybody fine?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, so now put your other hat on. One of like 50 hats.
Just another.
I'm sorry, Vermont is second Saturday,
Mhm.
Yes,
the 13th?
let me just look at the calendar.
No.
It's the 12th.
Starts on the 18th.
Between the 12th and the 28th this year.
So the,
Let me pull it up. It would be the 20th, Saturday, the 20th of September. Harvest New England Day is Saturday, the 27th, which is also another fun day.
26th, Harvest New England.
Harvest New England Day, yep. It's the last Saturday.
And 20th is Vermont Day.
The 20th is Vermont Day.
Exactly 6 months from today.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Expect to see you all there.
That's why you're the chair.
Yeah. It's happening nowadays. Okay, so well. Again,
We're back. Okay. We're now talking and switching to, still with the Agency of Agriculture, Foods and Market, but we're now dealing with the lab, Vermont Environmental and Agriculture Lab down in Randolph Center. And what we're here discussing, I think it's vaccines. You can just throw the last slide. What we'll do is show an aerial and what we're up to. So what we're hoping for this year is we were before you in the last biennium to do a new boiler house for the facility. So at the Vermont State University, the Randolph Center campus. When the building was originally constructed in the design, there was an effective alternate out there that we could tap into the college's steam boiler system and not build our own system. The problem with that is somewhere along the line between design and actual usage, there was an issue with pressure and also use. The college does not use steam in the summer months and also during the swim season until it gets cold enough for them to have the steam on. And it's basically when the students really come back and then leave. We're also looking at our autoclaves down there require high pressure steam, 50 PSI to be operating it. The college cannot get really to 50 PSI. They get to 48 on a regular basis, but it's very hard to maintain that. Last year and the year before, there have been some real issues with steam. They were doing a renovation to their heat plants 2 years ago to replace one of their pieces of equipment. And they, although they had a temporary boiler in place to help us out, it failed. They kept using more oil than what they anticipated, and pressure would drop, and they would have issues from the line. At that time, I don't think that they realized how critical it was to having steam for the lab, and also how to keep it from fluctuating. When they are providing steam, and it's working well, the amount of steam usage during the summer months is low compared to the size of their boiler. So if their boiler does, turns on, shuts on. Turns on, shuts off. It continues that. And it continues this short cycling constantly. And that just wears out the boiler faster. They're old late 60s, 70s boilers. The third boiler, I think, was done in the late 80s. But that is just too much for that size of the boiler. So what we did last biennium is we looked to go back to the original drawings, build on the campus our own heat plant. We were doing well along those lines, and until the college came back to us with a question. That was the fact that they were looking to improve their heat plant system along with the administration. That because their boilers were old. And so we had our design out to bid. We had received prices for design. We were sitting there and we now had just sort of canceled those. And what we're looking at doing is the college is now looking at replacing their boilers. They're also looking at to save their boilers to put in a summer boiler to just feed the lab. So that whole thought of going on with usage, everything else, is it best? Oops, that was a mistake. Doesn't matter. You don't see my screen. Is it really the right thing to do to be constructing a separate building for heating for our facility when we could still use the college if everything was working out right? So with a summer boiler, we're going to be providing steam for the lab. Everything would be good because it was size for that. The other issue being also that with the boilers being old, they're number 4 fuel, which is relatively thick. Something what you have at your home if you have oil. And so it has to be heated. And it's also has to be maintained a lot more. So, and number 4 now is becoming hard to get in this part of the country. So they were looking to also go to number 2. So we're now looking to do is work with the colleges to put in the summer boiler and also convert to number 2 fuel oil. And that'll help them out and also help out us. And that will also keep the steam pressure constant going down to the lab. So the lab will now be nice and happy and everybody should be getting along just fine. That's the goal.
And so you are confident, you sound confident that that solution makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Instead of going ahead with the separate project.
That is correct.
Don't you be going saving money on us now, Joe?
I'll do my best. should spend all of it. I don't know if that'll be the end, that we will be saving money. Ultimately, I know we just looked into we haven't worked, BGS used to help out our colleges back in the 80s and 90s. And it was in 1994 that we BGS helped the college replace the fuel oil tanks down there. So there's two 15,000 gallon or 12,000 gallon tanks, I believe. You can clean those, but the problem upon cleaning those is you may find that you've got some holes. Once you clean the tank now, any little micro holes will come probably, and then you have to change out the tanks. So part of that is also change out the tanks at that time, put in new ones, good for another 20 plus years, and just have number 2 fuel oil.
So you probably looked at other sources of fuel. Or do you?
Not for this in a way. When we were looking at our separate heat plant, the original design was to have 3 propane boilers that could handle the total load of the heat plant in the winter, the Vail plant in the winter, and also wood chips. So the wood chip plant was going to be the lead on that. I know the lab has some potential issues with what emissions that are coming out of the stack that could affect them. I haven't dug deep enough to find out whether or not there was a study done before, during the design of the original plant or not in the lab. If not, that was going to be part of our design. But now that we're sort of pivoting, what we're looking to do is more of a short-term fix that would give stability to the lab and always having their steam pressure and steam. And also helping out the college a little bit to go further down the road. There, prior to and right around the time that we were looking to put the lab down in Randolph Center, there was a study done in the college to do also wood chip plant. And that cost was extremely high. So they would also have boiler for backup in the swing season, using the oil, but have wood chips. We are not proposing to do wood chips at this time. We're just looking to sort of come up with a short-term fix that helps out everybody and may save some money.
So when you say short-term fix, do you mean that you can implement it quickly, but it'll only last for the short term?
Short term, this will last for 20, 30 years and longer. However, short term meaning that the college may approach and look to do a chip plant or pellet, other heating source.
Okay, so like an intern almost,
Yes,
so that they could change the source.
that is correct.
And are you not doing propane anymore?
There's talk, when I testified in the House originally on the subject, we were looking to do propane for the summer boilers in the college boiler plants. Now that we might be continuing going further and helping out the colleges with replacing their burners on their existing boilers and switching to number 2, it would be worthwhile to do the project at the same time. And that way we don't have 2 different sources of fuel on the site. We only have the one and the 2 oil tanks, and that would be it. So talking with the colleges, we don't believe we could now, by the time we get the funding, all they have in place temporary propane boilers. So they are saying they're going to work with us this whole next summer coming up, that they will hopefully maintain the steam and on all the time and at the correct pressure, and that the following year we should be able to be on the main. Okay. We plan the new summer boilers, keeping the number 2 fuel oil, and also changing out their burners so that they will be running number 2 instead of number 4.
Yeah, so obviously going from 4 to 2 is better in terms of cost and the environment.
Not in cost, it is cheaper for number 4, however, we're
You
trying
really
to
can't
get that's a problem, but it also is more labor intensive to be number 4, including truckers and the likes of that. And so when you look at that, number 2 is like, oh, turn it on and it runs 98% of the time. So that's what you're looking at. So the college would be probably saving, on overtime, the likes of that, when they have to come in and maintain those boilers. But the college would have to talk to you about that.
Okay, all right, and we're gonna see them soon.
We're waiting on all.
I can if you'd like me to. My name is Cheryl Achilles. I'm the Vermont Vail Lab Director. And I was just here to support Joe, but also to, if you had any questions about what kind of problems it causes for testing at the lab, I can delve into that a little bit. It's up to you.
That's, we did hear a little bit of that earlier this year, actually.
Well, we're still
about
trying to
that.
come see you in ag. We were gonna go down there at one time and then we got, something.
Yeah.
something-
Yeah.
Yeah,
A couple of,
I
yeah.
think we had a scheduling problem on the floor or something. So we're headed down there on a field trip to see you.
great.
So,
So we can talk about it.
Yeah.
so Joe was bringing lobster, Plunkett bringing steak. And, we're gonna steam them.
Okay, great.
And that'll pulverize. Well, you can invite two of us.
For the steam state.
Yeah, well, it's all we have. It's all we have. That's what we got.
You are the kingdom.
We're gonna make it happen. That's what we are. So.
I forgot, yes, that's right, yeah, so, I'm definitely up for this. I'm in the committees that we take field trips and stuff, so that's all.
great.
So,
Yeah, see what's going on.
So our field trips in this week, we go to prison, so I'd much rather do it in ag, you know.
Well, you miss Mount Vale. That's the snowbanks that collect in the back and on the front side of the lab. They're so large at times that we joke that we should open a ski mountain to
Wow.
sell tickets, but it's only about 4 feet high now.
Well, that's about how my ski, you know.
Yeah.
So I think I can handle that.
All right, I think we're good. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming on such short notice too.
You're welcome.
Wanna catch up?
Okay. So we have our JFO person in here. Is there anything you wanted us to know about?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Scott Moore, Joint Fiscal Office. I was in the neighborhood and I wanted to pop in and give you a brief update about where the house stands.
Just 1 second, it's getting loud. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Did you want to come up to the,
I'm happy to.
okay? Thanks.
Just giving you quick updates. They are finishing up some language. The capital building numbers are pretty much set in terms of the different adjustments they have made. Ultimately, right now, if you look at the governor recommended, if you have seen that language already, the governor's recommending about $110 million total in bond funding. The House Committee had found another 1.9 million, give or take, of capacity between reallocating some older projects or reducing some of the projects that are currently there. So the House has like 111.9 million, so a little bit more room there. And now they're just kind of hashing out the final language, bits and pieces of the capital bill. And I'm hoping to go to that tomorrow. So we should go to, you'll all see me more here in the committee here. So I've
That's a
been,
good thing.
you know, spending weeks and weeks and weeks upstairs, but I'm happy to come here and go through the same process. So I just want to come in and say hi, make sure you guys remember who it was.
Oh, we wouldn't forget you.
Of course not.
But we'll do the same process. I'm happy to bring you some spreadsheets. And
Bring the updated one with the 3 columns.
I'll bring up the one,
With the 3
you'll
tests.
see the governor, right, the House recommended, then an area for us to make recommendations here in the Senate.
Yeah.
But I'll anticipate doing that anytime next week. I'm happy to work with you, Madam Chair, and Gail, about
Yeah.
that flexibility and.
We'll be figuring that out today.
I figured that would be a good time for us to stop by because we're gonna be doing again for next week.
Exactly.
But that's all I really have. I just wanted to say how that you know that things are progressing upstairs and have it out. Tomorrow.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yes, Brian.
Yeah. Right, and you will. They will. All right.
Okay.
Anything else, folks? Are you good? Good?